The most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's a voice in your head. It's commenting, analyzing, maybe even arguing with what I'm saying. That voice never stops talking. It's been chattering away since you woke up this morning, and it'll keep going until you fall asleep tonight. The question is, what is that voice telling you? That conversation happened over 40 years ago, and let me tell you, it saved my life. But here's what Earl taught me that really matters. Success isn't about what happens to you. Success is about what you tell yourself, about what happens to you. The conversation you have with yourself every single day determines whether you're going to rise or fall, whether you're going to succeed or fail, whether you're going to be happy or miserable. Most people wake up every morning and immediately start beating themselves up. They look in the mirror and criticize what they see. They think about their problems, their failures, their limitations. They start their day with negative self-talk that would make their worst enemy blush. Then they wonder why their life isn't working out the way they want it to. Here's what I learned from Earl, and what I've spent the last 4 decades teaching. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant grows. If you plant weeds, you get weeds. If you plant flowers, you get flowers. And the seeds you plant every single day through your self-talk determine what kind of harvest you're going to reap in your life. Now, I'm going to share with you 5 things that Earl taught me to tell myself every day. These aren't just positive thinking exercises or feel-good phrases. These are principles that changed a broke young man into someone who could retire as a millionaire by age 31. But more than that, they're the foundation for a life worth living. You see, most people don't understand the power of their internal dialogue. They think success comes from external circumstances, the right job, the right connections, the right opportunities. But I learned something different. I learned that success comes from the inside out. It starts with how you talk to yourself when nobody else is listening. The truth is, you're going to have a conversation with yourself today anyway. You might as well make it a conversation that serves you instead of sabotages you. You might as well plant seeds that will grow into the life you want instead of the life you're trying to escape from. Earl used to tell me, Jim, you are the author of your own life story. Every day you write another page. The question is, what kind of story are you writing? And that story, my friend, begins with the words you speak to yourself. Let me tell you about the power of these 5 daily affirmations. When I started using them consistently, everything began to change. Not overnight, success doesn't work that way. But gradually, steadily, like the turning of the seasons, my confidence grew, my skills improved, my income increased, my relationships deepened, my entire life transformed, one day at a time, one conversation with myself at a time. But here's the catch. You can't just say these things once and expect magic to happen. You have to mean them, you have to believe them, you have to live them. They have to become part of who you are, not just words you repeat. The first principle Earl taught me was this: success is not a destination, it's a daily practice. And that practice begins the moment you wake up with the first words you speak to yourself. Those words set the tone for everything that follows. Let me share something with you that might shock you. The average person has about 60,000 thoughts per day. That's roughly 1 thought every second while you're awake. And here's the really startling part. Researchers tell us that 90% of those thoughts are exactly the same thoughts you had yesterday. The same worries, the same complaints, the same excuses, the same limitations. You're literally running the same mental program day after day, year after year, and then wondering why your life looks exactly the same. But what if I told you that you could change everything by simply changing 5 sentences? What if the difference between where you are now and where you want to be could come down to 5 simple statements you make to yourself each morning? That's exactly what happened to me. And that's what I've watched happen to thousands of people over the years. Here's what most people don't realize. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It doesn't know the difference between what's happening and what you're telling yourself is happening. It simply accepts whatever you feed it and then goes to work making that your reality. Feed it negative thoughts, and it creates a negative life. Feed it positive, empowering thoughts, and it creates opportunities you never thought possible. I remember when Earl first taught me this principle, I was skeptical. I thought, come on, it can't be that simple. But Earl smiled and said something I'll never forget. Jim, simple and easy are two different things. Climbing a mountain is simple. You just put one foot in front of the other until you reach the top. But nobody said it was easy. The same is true with these 5 daily affirmations. They're simple, but they require discipline. They require consistency. They require you to override years of negative programming and replace it with something better. Most people won't do it because they want complex solutions to simple problems. They think if it's not complicated, it can't be effective. But I learned that the most powerful truths are often the simplest ones. The law of gravity is simple. What goes up must come down. But simple doesn't mean it's not profound. These 5 statements work because they align your conscious mind with your subconscious mind. They get both parts of your mental machinery working toward the same goal instead of fighting against each other. Think about it this way. If you were going to build a house, you wouldn't start with the roof. You'd start with the foundation. These 5 daily affirmations are the foundation for everything else you want to build in your life. Without them, all your goals and dreams and plans are just built on sand. But with them, you've got bedrock to build upon. Now, before I share these 5 life-changing statements with you, I want you to make me a promise. Promise me you won't just listen to them and nod your head and then forget about them 5 minutes after this conversation ends. Promise me you'll take them seriously. Promise me you'll give them the respect they deserve. Because what I'm about to share with you has the power to transform your life completely, but only if you use it. The first thing I want you to tell yourself every morning is this: I am responsible. Not I am responsible for some things, or I am responsible when it's convenient. Simply, powerfully, completely, I am responsible. Now let me tell you a story that will show you exactly what I mean. There were 2 farmers who lived side by side in the same county. They had similar land, similar equipment, similar opportunities. One year, a terrible drought hit the region. The rain stopped coming, the crops began to wither, and both farmers faced the same devastating challenge. The first farmer looked at his dying crops and said, "This drought is ruining me. The weather is terrible. The government should do something. If only the rains would come, everything would be fine. This isn't my fault, I can't control the weather." He spent his days complaining to anyone who would listen, blaming the conditions, waiting for someone else to solve his problems. The second farmer looked at the same dying crops and said something completely different. He said, "I am responsible for finding a solution." Instead of complaining about what he couldn't control, he focused on what he could control. He researched drought-resistant crops. He invested in an irrigation system. He diversified his income by starting a small trucking business to transport goods for other farmers. He took responsibility not for the drought, but for his response to the drought. Guess which farmer survived? Guess which farmer not only survived, but thrived? The second farmer ended up with more income that drought year than he'd ever made before, while the first farmer lost his farm and spent the rest of his life bitter and broke, still blaming the weather. Here's what I learned from Earl Schoaf about responsibility. When you take responsibility for everything in your life, and I mean everything, you gain the power to change everything in your life. When you blame circumstances, other people, the economy, the government, your upbringing, or anything else, you give away your power. You become a victim. And victims don't succeed. But the moment you say, "I am responsible," something magical happens. You stop being a victim and start being a victor. You stop looking for someone to blame and start looking for someone to become. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How can I turn this into an opportunity?" I remember when this principle really hit home for me. I was struggling in my early career, making excuse after excuse for why things weren't working out. My income was low, my relationships were suffering, my health was poor. I had a convenient excuse for everything. The economy was bad, my boss didn't appreciate me, I didn't have the right education, I came from the wrong side of town. Then Earl sat me down and said, Jim, let me ask you something. If you're not responsible for your results, then who is? That question stopped me cold. Because if I wasn't responsible, that meant I was powerless. And if I was powerless, then I was stuck forever. But if I was responsible even for things that seemed beyond my control, then I had the power to change them. If I was responsible for my low income, I could increase it. If I was responsible for my poor relationships, I could improve them. If I was responsible for my health, I could get in better shape. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you caused everything that happens to you. Life throws curveballs at all of us. People disappoint us. Circumstances change. Unexpected challenges arise. But here's the key. You are 100% responsible for how you respond to whatever happens to you. The word responsibility breaks down into two parts, response and ability. Your responsibility, your ability to respond. And that ability is the only thing that's truly yours in this life. Nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can control it but you. It's your greatest power and your greatest gift. When you tell yourself, I am responsible every morning, you're programming your mind to look for solutions instead of excuses. You're training yourself to ask better questions. Instead of why me, you start asking, what can I learn from this? Instead of who's to blame, you start asking, what's my next move? This shift in thinking changes everything. It changes how you approach problems. It changes how you relate to other people. It changes how you see opportunities. Most importantly, it changes how you see yourself, from someone who things happen to someone who makes things happen. But I want to warn you about something. The moment you start taking full responsibility for your life, some people around you won't like it. They're comfortable with you being a victim because it makes them feel better about being victims themselves. When you stop complaining and start taking action, it makes their excuses look pretty thin. Don't let that stop you. Remember, you are responsible for your life, not theirs. You are responsible for your success, not theirs. You are responsible for your happiness, not theirs. And the beautiful thing about responsibility is this: the more you take, the more power you gain to create the life you truly want. The second thing you must tell yourself every single day is this: I can learn. 3 simple words that will open doors you never knew existed. 3 words that'll take you places you never thought possible. 3 words that transformed a farm boy from Idaho into someone who could stand before audiences around the world and share principles that change lives. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. When I graduated from high school, I thought my education was over. I thought learning was something you did in school, and once school was finished, you could stop learning and just coast through life on what you already knew. That was one of the most dangerous assumptions I ever made, and it nearly cost me everything. At 25, I was earning about $57 a week. That's all I was worth in the marketplace, because that's all I knew how to do. I had the same skills I'd had at 18, the same knowledge I'd had at 21. I wasn't growing, so my income wasn't growing. My value to the marketplace had flatlined because my commitment to learning had flatlined. Then I met Earl Schoaf, and he taught me something that revolutionized my entire life. He said, Jim, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. At first, I didn't understand what he meant, but then he explained it to me in a way that changed everything. Earl told me about a man he knew who earned more money in 1 year than his parents had earned in their entire lifetimes combined. This wasn't because he was born into wealth or had some special advantages. It was because he had learned skills that his parents had never learned. He had developed knowledge that made him more valuable in the marketplace. The difference between where you are now and where you want to be, Earl said, is the information you don't yet have and the skills you haven't yet developed. But here's the beautiful thing, Jim. You can learn anything. You can develop any skill. You can acquire any knowledge. The only question is, are you willing to do what it takes? That conversation changed my life because it changed my relationship with learning. I realized that learning wasn't something that ended when you left school. It was something that had to continue for your entire life if you wanted your life to continue improving. I started reading books like a man possessed. Not just any books, but books that could teach me skills that would make me more valuable. I read about sales, about business, about communication, about leadership. I studied successful people and tried to understand what they did differently. I listened to audio programs while I drove. I attended seminars and workshops whenever I could afford them. And something amazing started to happen. The more I learned, the more I earned. By the time I was 31, I had become a millionaire, not because I was lucky or born with special talents, but because I had learned things that made me worth more in the marketplace. But here's what really matters. Learning isn't just about making more money. Learning is about becoming more. Every new skill you develop, every piece of knowledge you acquire, every insight you gain makes you a more complete human being. It makes you more interesting, more confident, more capable of handling whatever life throws at you. Think about this. Every problem you face is really just a learning opportunity in disguise. Every challenge is asking you to become more than you currently are. Every setback is teaching you something you need to know for the comeback that's coming. I learned that there are really two kinds of learning in this world. There's learning from your own experience, and there's learning from other people's experience. Most people only learn from their own mistakes, their own failures, their own painful lessons. But successful people learn from everyone, from their mentors, from their competitors, from books written by people who lived centuries ago. Why limit yourself to learning only from your own 30, 40, or 50 years of experience when you can learn from thousands of years of human wisdom? Why make the same mistakes millions of people have already made when you can learn from their failures and avoid those mistakes entirely? Here's something Earl taught me about learning that I want to share with you. He said there are 3 ways to learn anything. You can learn by trial and error, which is slow and expensive. You can learn by example, which is faster and less expensive. Or you can learn by study, which is the fastest and least expensive way of all. Most people choose trial and error because they think it's easier. They want to figure everything out for themselves. They don't want to read books or study successful people or invest in their education. But trial and error is actually the hardest way to learn because you have to pay for every lesson with your own mistakes, your own failures, your own lost time and lost opportunities. The smartest people I know are learners. They're always reading something, always studying something, always trying to improve some skill. They understand that in a rapidly changing world, the people who stop learning become obsolete. Their skills become outdated, their knowledge becomes irrelevant, their value in the marketplace decreases. But the people who never stop learning, who are always growing and developing and improving, these people become more valuable every year. They become the leaders in their fields. They become the ones other people come to for advice and guidance. When you tell yourself, I can learn every morning, you're opening your mind to possibilities you can't even imagine right now. You're programming yourself to see every experience as educational, every person as a potential teacher, every challenge as a chance to grow. You're also giving yourself permission to be a beginner again. One of the biggest obstacles to learning is the fear of looking foolish, of not knowing something, of having to start at the bottom of a new skill. But when you truly believe I can learn, you embrace being a beginner because you know that's the first step to becoming an expert. The most successful people I know are perpetual students. They never graduate from the school of life because they understand that learning is not a destination, it's a journey. And the beautiful thing about this journey is that the more you learn, the more you realize how much more there is to learn. It never gets boring because there's always something new to discover, always another level to reach, always another skill to develop. So tomorrow morning when you look at yourself in the mirror, I want you to say these words with conviction. I can learn. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your future depends on it, because it does. But let me tell you something else about learning that most people miss. Learning isn't just about accumulating information. It's about transformation. Real learning changes you at the deepest level. It changes how you think, how you see the world, how you respond to challenges. It changes who you are. I remember reading a book that completely shifted my perspective on money. Before reading that book, I thought rich people were lucky or dishonest. I had all kinds of negative beliefs about wealth that were keeping me broke. But after studying how wealth is really created, after learning the principles that truly wealthy people follow, my entire relationship with money changed. And when my thinking changed, my income changed. That's the power of learning. It doesn't just give you new information, it gives you new eyes to see with. It gives you new tools to work with. It gives you new possibilities to pursue. Here's something else I want you to understand about learning. The marketplace pays you for what you know and what you can do. If you know more, you can earn more. If you can do more, you can be more. It's that simple and that profound. But most people have this backwards. They want to earn more first, and then maybe they'll invest in learning. They say, when I have more money, then I'll buy books, then I'll take courses, then I'll hire coaches. But that's like saying, when I'm stronger, then I'll start exercising. You don't get stronger and then start exercising. You start exercising and then get stronger. You don't earn more and then start learning. You start learning and then earn more. Learning is the cause, earning is the effect. Get the sequence right and everything else falls into place. Earl used to tell me, Jim, if someone gave you $1 million, would you have the knowledge and skills to keep it? At the time, the honest answer was no. I would have lost it because I didn't understand money, I didn't understand investing, I didn't understand how to create multiple streams of income. I would have been like those lottery winners who end up broke within a few years. But Earl said something that stuck with me. If you become the kind of person who can earn $1 million, then even if you lose it, you can earn it back. Because once you have the knowledge and skills, no one can take them away from you. That's when I realized that the real goal isn't to get rich quick, it's to get rich sure. And the only way to get rich sure is to develop yourself to the point where your success becomes inevitable, where your value in the marketplace becomes so high that people line up to pay you. Learning also gives you something else that's incredibly valuable: confidence. Real confidence doesn't come from pretending you know everything. Real confidence comes from knowing that you can learn anything you need to learn. It comes from having proven to yourself over and over again that you can master new skills, solve new problems, overcome new challenges. When you have that kind of confidence, the confidence that comes from being a proven learner, you stop being afraid of new opportunities. You stop being intimidated by successful people. You stop making excuses about why you can't achieve what others have achieved, because you know that whatever they learned, you can learn too. The beautiful thing about living in this era is that learning has never been easier or more accessible. We have access to more information, more courses, more mentors, more opportunities to learn than any generation in human history. The excuse, "I don't know how," doesn't work anymore. If you don't know how to do something, you can learn how. The question isn't whether the information is available, the question is whether you're willing to seek it out and apply it. So make learning a daily habit. Read something every day. Listen to something educational while you're driving. Study successful people in your field. Take courses that stretch your thinking. Invest in your education like your life depends on it, because it does. The third thing you must tell yourself every morning is perhaps the most powerful of all. I can change, not I might change, or I should change, or maybe someday I'll change. Simply, boldly, definitively, I can change. Most people are terrified of change. They cling to their familiar patterns, their comfortable routines, their predictable problems. They'd rather stay stuck in a situation they hate than risk the uncertainty that comes with change. But here's what they don't understand. If you don't change, nothing else will change either. Let me tell you about the most remarkable transformation I've ever witnessed in nature. A caterpillar spends most of its life crawling around on the ground, limited by its own biology to a very small world. But something extraordinary happens when that caterpillar is ready to change. It wraps itself in a cocoon, and inside that dark, confined space, it literally dissolves. Its entire body breaks down into what scientists call soup. Everything it was disappears. But here's the miracle. Inside that soup are special cells called imaginal cells. These cells carry the blueprint for something completely different, something the caterpillar never was, but always had the potential to become. Those cells multiply and organize and eventually form a butterfly, a creature that can soar above the world the caterpillar could only crawl through. That story changed my life because I realized that we all have imaginal cells inside us. We all carry the blueprint for becoming something far greater than what we are right now. But most people never activate those cells because they're afraid of the dissolution process. They're afraid of letting go of who they are to become who they could be. When I was 25 and broke, I had to face a choice. I could stay the person I was, the person who made excuses, who blamed circumstances, who settled for mediocrity, or I could change into someone different. I could become the kind of person who earned more, who contributed more, who lived more fully. But change is never easy. It requires you to step out of your comfort zone, and your comfort zone, even if it's uncomfortable, is familiar. It's known. Change means venturing into the unknown, and that's scary for most people. Here's what Earl taught me about change. Change is not just possible, it's inevitable. You're going to change whether you like it or not. The question is, are you going to direct that change, or are you going to let it happen to you? Are you going to change by design, or are you going to change by default? Look at your life 5 years ago. Are you exactly the same person now that you were then? Of course not. You've changed in hundreds of ways, some good, some not so good. But most of those changes happen by accident, by circumstance, by default. Very few people take conscious control of their personal development and decide to change by design. But that's exactly what successful people do. They don't wait for life to change them, they change themselves on purpose. They identify areas where they need to grow, and they systematically work on improving those areas. They understand that if they want their circumstances to change, they must first change the person who created those circumstances. I learned that there are really only two types of change. There's change you choose, and there's change that's forced upon you. And I'll tell you right now, change you choose is always better than change that's forced upon you. When you choose to change, you're in control. When change is forced upon you, you're just reacting. The marketplace is constantly changing. Technology is changing. The economy is changing. Society is changing. If you're not changing with it, you're falling behind. The skills that got you where you are today might not be enough to get you where you want to go tomorrow. But here's the beautiful thing about human beings. We're designed to change. We're not like trees that grow in one spot their entire lives. We have the capacity to reinvent ourselves, to develop new skills, to form new habits, to become entirely different people if we choose to. I've seen people transform themselves completely. I've seen shy people become confident speakers. I've seen poor people become wealthy. I've seen sick people become healthy. I've seen angry people become peaceful. The human capacity for change is unlimited if you understand how to harness it. The key is to start small. Most people try to change everything at once, and they get overwhelmed and quit. But small changes, consistently applied over time, create massive results. If you improve just 1% every day, you'll be 37 times better in a year. That's the power of compound change. Change also requires you to change your environment. You can't expect to become a different person while surrounding yourself with the same influences that created the person you're trying to leave behind. If you want to change your life, you have to change your associations, your information sources, your daily routines. When you tell yourself, I can change every morning, you're programming your mind to look for opportunities to grow. You're training yourself to see challenges as chances to develop new capabilities. You're giving yourself permission to become someone better than you were yesterday. But remember this, change is a process, not an event. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes persistence. Don't expect to transform overnight, but do expect to transform if you stay committed to the process. The person you are today is the result of thousands of small choices you've made over the years. The person you become tomorrow will be the result of the choices you make starting today. Choose to change. Choose to grow. Choose to become everything you're capable of becoming. The fourth and final thing you must tell yourself every morning is this: I will act. Because everything we've talked about, taking responsibility, learning, changing means absolutely nothing without action. Action is the bridge between your dreams and your reality. I've met thousands of people over the years who knew exactly what they should do. They had read all the books, attended all the seminars, listened to all the tapes. They could quote success principles like scholars. But their lives weren't any different because they never acted on what they knew. Knowledge without action is worthless. It's like having a car with no gas. It looks impressive, but it won't take you anywhere. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people's dreams go to die. When you tell yourself, "I will act every morning," you're making a commitment to move beyond good intentions. You're promising yourself that today will be different, because you will be different. You won't just think about calling that prospect. You'll call them. You won't just plan to exercise. You'll exercise. You won't just dream about starting that business. You'll take the first step. Action has a magical quality. It turns ideas into reality. It transforms potential into results. It converts hope into achievement. Every great accomplishment in history started with someone deciding to act despite their fears, despite their doubts, despite not knowing exactly how things would turn out. So here are your 4 daily affirmations. I am responsible. I can learn. I can change. I will act. Say them every morning. Mean them. Live them. Let them become the foundation upon which you build everything else. Your life will never be the same.